Anwat.
Hi.
Haribo.
Haribo, Landavad.
Agdaras. Hayanandaji. Haribo.
Dandavas, Maharaj. Dandavas, devotee. Happy to see you. How are you, Maharaj?
I'm good, by your grace, grace of the devotees.
Good.
All troubles disappear when we come in contact with the devotees. Huh?
Yes. He is the most maravilloso thing for the soul and the people.
Hare Krishna.
Namaskar. Namaskar to all.
Hare
Dandavad
Krishna.
Maharaj. Pranam.
Dandavad. Want to put on the Vandanam? Shri Guru Garanga Jayatha. O chant Vandanam. Vande Ham Shri Guru. Shri
Rupam Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sa Advaitam Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padana Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakha
Om
Om Agyana Timidandhasya Jnana Jnana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Pujya Sri Guru Varga Bandita Mahabhavana Vitaya Sada Purvaparya Parampara Prachalita Prajya Pramuta Kritaha Bhaktar Nirmala Nirha Nirbhishtam Samskritam Sadaram Vande Sri Guru Devam Ananta Sri Acharya Varyam Nityam
Gurvavishta
Purakam Guru Ganar Asisa Sambhositam Chinta Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Sri Guru Govinda Vidha Ujavalam Bharatanu Bhaktya Anvitam Sundaram Bande Vishwa Gurunacha Dibya Bhagavata Premana Vijapadam
Devam
Devam Dibyatanum Suchanda Vadanam Balakachalanchitam Sada Puram Sada Ekavarnam Vairagya Vidhamudi Visidhanta Nidhim Subhavakti Lashitam Saraswatanambaram Vandetam Subhadam मध्य एक शरणं न्यासीरं सिरं
Sri Siddhanta
सिद्धांत सरस्वती विदित गौड़ीय गौरव पात पुनर्व्य प्रभात गगने य गौरे संकीर्तन मायावाद तिविन रोदर गतानुत कृष्ण प्रेम स्वभाविद गहन सुखम नम गौर किशोराय भक्त बुदते मूर्ते गौरांग्रेह पद्म विहंगाय राधा भाव निश्चलिन
Ram Shri Gaura
जगन्नाथ प्रभु वंदे प्रेम विधि वृषण वैष्णव
Premadim Veda Vaishnavam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.
Frozen. Back.
Are you back? Can anyone hear?
Yes, Maharaj.
Can hear her now? Yes.
Yes, Maharaj, you can hear now. Yeah.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
कृप सिंधु एव च पतितानां प्रवणेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः पंचतत्त्वकं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तवतारं भक्तक्षं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम् नमो महावदनाय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते या कृष्ण चैतन्य नामेन जायतं सुरातो गर्मम मन्दे मतर्गति मत सर्वस्व दिव्याद वृंदारण्य कल्पद्रुमदाः श्रीमद्रत्नागर सिंहासनस्थौ श्रीगंधर्व श्रीलगोविंद देवो वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च क्षणभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्य वै नमो नमः अथ नत्वा मंत्र गुरुन भगवत व्यासन जगद्गुरु नत्वे स परिकर श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधर्व गोविंद सुंदर पद्मपाद नाम जयस्तु श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Chayadev, Srila Santa Maharaja ki Jai. Srila Govardhana ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. The assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Hari.
Hari Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj ki jai.
की जय
Nityananda Prabhu, Hari Bol, Dhanavad. What is that? Oh.
Maharaj.
Haribol, Dandavat.
Good. Wonderful to see you.
Yes.
Krishna, wonderful to see you.
I hope you are well.
I'm very well now, Maharaj. Yes, after a long period of illness.
Okay.
Thankfully well. Thank you very much for your grace and mercy. And how are you, Maharaj?
Everything is good, Prabhu.
Looking wonderful. Hmm.
So we'll begin reading the Prapanna-jivanamrtam, Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam of Srila Bhakti Yoga Dev-Goswami Maharaj, starting all over again. There's a very nice preface to the book, written in 1944 by
Good night.
Nishringananda Brahmacharya. What is that? We'll put it on the screen. The first, this is from the Bengali edition. This book was recently translated in English in the 1980s, I think. But it was first published in India, in Bengal, in Bengali language. And actually, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada's sister, helped raise funds so that this book can be published. She was so gave so much honor to Srila Sridhara Maharaj that she wanted to help publish this book. So Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Astotara Sata Sri Srimad Bhakti Rakshak Dev Goswami Maharaja Ki Jai.
Jai.
What happened to Uma Devi?
She was there and then she dropped.
Okay, so this is by devotee Nishringananda Brahmacharya, who was a close associate, friend of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Prabhu, you want to read?
The best introduction to the author of this book is given by the work itself. Pujapad Parivrajaka Tridandi Swami Srimad Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj is the fit recipient of the grace bestowed upon him by that great universal Guru, who shines like the sun among the Gaudiya Acharyas. Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, now left this world to join the eternal divine pastimes, is the divine agent to flood the world with the nectarian universal preaching of the glory of the Supreme Lord in the divine succession of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although the devotional community is well acquainted with the illustrious personality of His Holiness B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, I may nonetheless take the opportunity to enumerate some of his glories herein for my self-purification. The brilliance of his unprecedented scholarship is found in the artful compilation and harmony of Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam, Life-Nectar of the Surrendered Souls, accurately drawn from the axiomatic teachings of pure devotion, Bhakti Siddhanta Vani, as evolved by the Vaishnava preceptors in the line of the bona fide scriptures. We have already seen the extraordinary competence of His Holiness in preaching the beautiful illuminating conceptions of the kings of transcendental scholars, the Vaishnava preceptors headed by Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatan, and Sri Jiva, in various languages throughout the whole of India. Upon reading the first Sanskrit poem composed by His Holiness, Sri Bhakti Vinod Viraha Dasakam, our divine master commented that the writing was of a happy style. Srila Prabhupada profusely praised the devotional gravity of the presentation, revealing his deep satisfaction and joyful confidence that in times to come, the message of Sri Chaitanya Dev would be befittingly upheld and preached by the author. Just prior to his entrance into his eternal pastimes, Srila Prabhupada
Srila Prabhupada means Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He's referring to his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He's also called Prabhupada.
Just prior to his entrance into his eternal pastimes, Srila Prabhupada, in preference to hearing devotional prayer, kirtan, performed by devotees recognized for expertise, called for His Holiness's pure rendering of Sri Rupa Manjari Pada Se Mura Sampada, the worshipful prayer of the Gaudiya Vaishnava's most cherished ideal. The theme of Life-Nectar of the Surrendered Souls is described in the introductory first chapter, Prelude to Approaching Nectar. In some instances throughout the work, the Bengali verse interpretation of the venerated pure devotees has been fittingly given for the translation of the authentic stanzas quoted. In words of nectar from the devotees, statements of the Supreme Lord have occasionally been quoted in confirmation with the development of the theme. In his explanatory aphorisms that precede each stanza, the author reveals the unique axiomatic truths, Siddhanta, of his divine succession. Doubtlessly, the good readers who know the supremacy of the Gaudiya Siddhanta, the axiomatic devotional teachings in line with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will be overjoyed with His Holiness's novel illuminations. In the epilogue, the author has mentioned his line of divine succession and the time and place of the writing of the book. It has been vividly illustrated herein that a life without surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is utterly futile, and the most treasured perfection achieved through exclusive surrender has been revealed. This will especially encourage those who are aspiring to enter the land of devotion, drawing them onward to the lotus feet of Sri Hari. And it will infuse spiritual joy and exhilaration in the hearts of the established devotees. This book is the supreme wealth of the surrendered souls. Devotion for the Supreme Lord, Sri Hari Bhakti, is the singular quintessence in this world. And only by exclusive surrender, Sharanagati, is it happily attained. May this life nectar of the surrendered souls graciously appear all the world over, distributing the ever-increasing aspiration to reach the abode of divine ecstasy, the lotus feet of Sri Hari. Just as the repeated rubbing of sandalwood produces more and more charm and fragrance, we remain confident that the faithful devotees, whose only pleasure is in conclusive theological truth, sat-cit-ananda, will experience the ambrosial devotional fragrance of this holy treatise in their spiritual discussions, and thus relish transcendental delight. We shall consider ourselves blessed when this book inevitably comes to be treasured by the august assembly of the fortunate souls. On the holy anniversary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's departure, Gorabda 457, or January 14th, 1944, at Sri Dham Navadvip. A Vaishnava's servant's servant, Sri Nrsimha Hananda Brahmachari.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, it's interesting that this was written in 1944, and he says, may this life nectar of the surrendered souls graciously appear all over the world, distributing the ever-increasing aspiration to reach the abode of divine ecstasy, the lotus feet of Sri Hari. By his prayer that book, this book now is distributed all over the world. Unfortunately, not many people bother to read it, but it has been distributed. It is available. And getting involved in so many things and forgetting this most basic concept, they are missing the importance and the essence of devotional life, spiritual life that is presented in this book and by this book. Harinandaji, you have this in Spanish, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
You don't have to read it, but it's there for those who like to read it in Spanish. You can.
Yeah, I can read in Spanish. Yes.
No, I mean not now, but when those who'd like to read it in Spanish, it's available for Nelson and Aditi Nandan Prabhu. If you like to read it in Spanish.
Or put the link
¿Que quiere que lo lea en español o solamente comente? Nelson.
Okay. Okay. Good.
No, él dice que ahorita no, porque me imagino que es largo, pero después que me lo pases para yo leerlo en español.
Sí, seguro. Jai Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. Jai, namaste, Acharyas.
Hi, good to
Okay.
see everyone.
Yes, very nice to see you too. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, of course.
So then, I don't want to read that one. So Srila Maharaj writes, this divine book was prepared and presented to the lotus hands of the venerable author by his disciples and aspiring servitors and the celebrated appearance day of Lord Gaur Chandra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on the 2nd March 1988. So this is the first English translation was presented to Sridhar Maharaj in 1988. A very beautiful edition was prepared. Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And then we have Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the spiritual master of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and also the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami. Govinda Maharaj is the disciple of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And then we have Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, we can say, was the Param Guru, spiritual master of Srila Saraswati Thakur, through Gorkishore Das Babatri. Yeah? And then you can see a picture. This is a picture of the temple where Sridhar Maharaj was preaching. This was in Gojum Deep, in Navadvip, the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat temple, very beautiful temple. And these are the deities there. Shri Guru, Gauranga, Gadarbhika Govinda Sundar. Srimati Radharani is sometimes called Gandharvika. And Govinda Sundar. So the foreword, this is a foreword by Srila Sridhara Maharaj. And we can read that if you like to participate in reading. I can save my voice a little bit. Hi, Anandaji. Would you like to start reading? And then we'll go give everyone a chance to read.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
All glory to Divine Master and the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Foreword. Because the soul is a particle of consciousness. It is endowed with free will. Eliminating free will only gross matter remains. Without independence, the soul could not progress from bondage to liberation, and his ultimate salvation would have been impossible. But his spirit of exploitation is foreign force and intoxicant, and miscalculation that surround his independence. Likes objective may be scientifically analyzed and threefold: exploitation, renunciation, and dedication. The most common tendency in those engaged in exploiting other person, species, or element for mundane senses enjoyment. They desire to elevate themselves in the present environment, and thus they are described as elevationists. A more sober class discover the severe equal and opposite reaction to worldly pursuit, and they engage in renunciation of the world. In
Crows.
Uh,
Crows.
Let me connect here.
It ran out.
they are snowed at the
Prabhu,
one moment, man.
the internet was disconnected when you were reading.
Okay.
So
A more sober class discovered the severe equal and opposite reaction to worldly pursuit, and they engage in renunciation of the world, in search and the equilibrium comparable to this dreamless slumber. By being on way to the world, they hope to escape in concomitant reaction and suffering. Thus their goal is liberation, and they are snow and salvationists or liberationists. But though the correct interpretation on the revealed scripture, but learning what are such Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Ramanuja. The devotees of divinity know the pursuit of both exploitation and renunciation as not only fruitless, but injurious to real progress. The normal world song and happy playing is in the life of dedication, without exploiting or borrowing anything from the environment, and without attempting to artificial renunciate. One who is sincere to dedicate himself naturally come into contact with a higher and more subtle plane of life. By his readiness to give and serve, he will attain to a higher society and achieve an appropriate master. The enjoying spirit for on to be associated with a lower section to control and enjoy, and the renouncing spirit to allures even the scholar with its prestigious superiority over exploitation. That is more dangerous. You as half true is more dangerous than falsehood. And it is difficult to awaken someone for the best possible sleep. The liberationists may remain for incalculable time within their cell of non-differentiated liberation, but the higher existence will invite the serve of one who decided to purely dedicate himself without remuneration.
Okay,
Seva.
Prabhu, thank you. Okay,
Thank you,
good.
Maharaj.
Thank you. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you,
So
Maharaj.
here he presents the three objectives of life that we face. First, he says, without free will, without a certain amount of independence, then the living entity can't make any progress one way or another. Because there is free will, we can make progress. Because free will means accepting and rejecting. Accepting the higher things and rejecting the lower things. Then it's called progress. So spiritual progress is the same thing. It means accepting the higher conception and rejecting the lower conceptions. The immediate, actually, the non-conceptual, the irrational, most living entity, most human beings who have that free will, who have that higher intelligence, they accept the world as it is, they were born into. Whatever they were born into and the people that they know, they accept that as the reality. And they're very happy to engage in those activities on the worldly platform. But that worldly platform is composed mostly of exploitation of the environment, because everyone is living for their own self-enjoyment, and taking the resources of nature as their property, as meant for their enjoyment, and forgetting that where that comes from. So this exploitation is the functioning of the living entity in his original state as a natural being, by taking birth in this world and just accepting what the world is giving you and how the world is there just for your pleasure. That is the first problem. This is the first problem, because it is an exploiting mood. And we see there are so many results of that. Is there are so many actions and reactions that are coming, and people are suffering because of that. They suffer because of the reactions of the doing. We can see the environmental crisis, inflation, so many things, wars, disease. These are coming because as a reaction to our actions. We don't know how we are affecting our own lives by our activities. So those who utilize their free will to question their present existence, not merely accept it and then engage in that like with full force, without thinking, without trying to understand anything higher. That is foolishness. They are fools, and necessary that if we are foolish, we will suffer. We will suffer due to our own ignorance. Thus, the intelligent person has to inquire more deeply into reality than simply accept it, what is on the surface. And that deeper questioning doesn't mean that you have to renounce the world. That's another mistake. One thing is to exploit the world. The next mistake is to renounce the world. Not that the world should be renounced. There's a proper way of dealing with the world. There's a proper relationship between us and the world. But that has to be understood. It can't simply, we're not simply born with that. No, most people are not. Most people are conditioned to just simply enjoy this world according to their own idea. So that higher conception is called dedication. Recognizing that this world is something given to us. By whom? They speak of the given, but who has given this to us? That is God, that is Krishna. So to understand that there is God, that there is Krishna, this is the higher conception. And to use our free will to accept that and to engage in service to that higher plane. That is real intelligence, dedication. Excuse me.
Maharaj, can you say something regarding the concept of free will more? What do you mean by freedom of will?
It means independence.
Like,
Independence.
so in what sense?
Independence. In other words, you don't like to be a slave. Nobody wants to be a slave to another person. We reject that. Because we have our freedom to think as we want. We're not forced. We're not particles of matter. Matter is forced to act in this way or that way according to the external circumstances. But we are not like that. We are not like particles, inanimate particles. We have freedom. When something happens in the environment, we make a choice as to what to do in that situation. So as I was explaining, we're born in this world and everything is there immediately. So what do? We have a choice. We can either exploit the world, we can renounce it, or we can understand it's in the higher sense of how to dedicate, that our life is meant for dedication, to utilize the world for the service of the higher purpose, that higher being who is creating, who is giving this to us, to know God. Now, all the other creatures in this world, other than human, they are forced to act according to their own instincts. But the human being has a choice. He's the only one who can understand God and turn his attention to God. Otherwise, the animals don't have that idea. So the scriptures are giving us this information, that we have a choice. We have to make our choice to serve the higher plane, to live a life of dedication and not one of simply exploitation and renunciation. We have that choice. And to make use of that freedom, that is the real intelligence. That will elevate one's life.
But choice can be individual choice also.
Yes.
Like to give a choice to decide to something may not be good in a larger domain. So in that case, what leads to that choice? Like I may have a choice, but that choice do not go in favor of the world or in favor of the society. So what I have to do with that choice?
So as I'm explaining, we get some direction, and we're not simply left here with free will and not know what to do with it. We're giving some direction from the scripture, and they tell us that there is God that we have to learn how to serve God, and then we will fulfill our aspirations for joy and happiness and satisfaction and higher life, a final life of existence. So without that instruction, without that direction, we see people doing so many different things. They're actually insane. They're driving themselves crazy and others crazy also, because they have no direction in their life, and they don't accept any direction except their own, what their own mind tells them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Krishna has given us a direction in the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, so the Vedas, even the Bible, all these books, Quran, some indication is given that there's something higher than us. And by including that in our life, we can make our life better, more perfect. Okay. Then we'll go on for our seva. Dr. Rasa. Dr. Ross, would you like to read?
Yes. Seva, service, dedication is the summum bonum of the teachings of the Vaishnava school, the third plane of life where every unit is a dedicating member in an organic whole. In such a normal adjustment, everyone mutually assists one another in their service to the center, the higher recipient, the highest entity. Everything is existing to satisfy him because he must possess this qualification to be the absolute. He is the prime cause of all causes, and everything exists for him to satisfy him. A barren conception of mere deathlessness cannot afford us any knowledge of a positive thing, but only freedom from the negative side. If immortality means no influence of mortality, what then is its positive conception? What will be the nature, movement, and progress of that which is immortal? Without this understanding, immortality is only an abstract idea. Because it does not appear to exhibit the symptoms of death, stone would be more immortal than human beings, and conscious entities would be mortal, forever denied immortality. What then is the positive conception of immortality? How are the immortal immortal? What is the positive reality in immortality? How can one become immortal? One must search out his intrinsic location in the universal order. It will not do to attempt to solve only the negative side of life, which is full of suffering, birth, death, infirmity, and disease. We should know that there exists a conception of life worth living for. This positive side has been almost totally neglected in general religious views. The immortality professed by the schools of Buddha and Shankaracharya yields no positive life. Their goals are Maha-Nirvana and Brahma-Sayuja, respectively. The Buddhist theory is that after liberation, nothing remains. They crave absolute extinction of material existence, Prakriti Nirvana, and the Shankarite monastery liberation is to lose one's individuality by becoming one with the non-differentiated aspect of the absolute. That is, they crave extinction in Brahman, Brahma Nirvana. They postulate that when the triad of seer, seen, and seeing, Drishta, Drishya, Darshana, or knower, knowable, and knowledge, Yata, Jnana, Jnana, will culminate at one point. The triad is destroyed, Triphuti, Vinasha, and nothing remains. Material action and reaction ceases in Viraja, the river of passivity, which is located at the uppermost edge of this illusory Mayika world. And above Viraja is the destination of the Shankarites, the abscissa stage, or the non-differentiated plane of Brahman, called Brahmaloka, which is located at the lowest edge of the spiritual realm. Both are vague areas of negative immortality. Brahmaloka is a marginal or buffer state midway between the material and spiritual worlds. Composed of innumerable souls, it is an immortal plane devoid of specific variegatedness, nirvisesha. It possesses positivity only in the sense that it is a plane of existence, a background, kashta. But in itself, it lacks positive development of variegated existence, kala. The nature of the background is oneness, and development woven over it necessitates plurality or a differentiated nature. Kalakashti Rupena Parinama Pradayini Chandi Markandeya Purana.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Prabhu. Srila Sridhar Maharaj has a very sophisticated way of explaining these things, but hopefully it's clear enough what he's saying. And as I said, for those who speak Spanish, it may be difficult to understand these very high thoughts. But if you read the book that is there in Spanish, Harinanda, you can indicate if they don't have the book to Delson and Adityananda and where they can find it. Okay. Okay, so then let's see who else now. And then Dr. Sahu, would you like to read?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Pranam. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.16, mutable, Khyara, and immutable Akshaya existences are described, representing the personal and the impersonal, the development and the basis, or differentiated and non-differentiated conceptions of general existence. The mutable is represented by the multitude of embodied living beings, while the immutable aspect is the great expanse of the all-accommodating absolute, the Brahman. 8.3. In the analysis of worldly action, the most subtle form of unfructified past action prior to the present tendency, the settling stage to sin has been defined, BRS Purva 1.23, as unknowable, indistinct, and of untraceable origin, Kuta. The immutable Brahman aspect of the absolute is similarly defined as being one-dimensional, undetectable, unspecific, and of no definite color, sound, or taste, an unknown and unknowable, ununderstandable stage of existence, Kuta. But the Supreme Lord, Krishna, is above both the mutable and immutable existences, and thus his glories are sung throughout the Vedas in the world as the Purushottama, the Supreme Personality. BZ 15.18, Bhagavad Gita 15.18. The Sri Sukadeva Goswami affirms that in the most remote and distant plane, Lord Krishna is to be found. Everywhere is he, the fountainhead of all conceptions. Vidura Kastaya, Bhagavad Gita 2.4.14. He cannot be eliminated. Thus, the immortality of the impersonalistic schools, such as Buddhists, Sankarites, etc., offers no positive life. But in Vaishnavism, the immortality is positive, dynamic existence. Above the non-differentiated Brahman aspect of the absolute, the transcendental, variegated existence begin in the first glimpse of the spiritual sky, the plane known as Parabhyam, CC Madhya 19.153. Situated there in the spiritual plane is the positive kingdom of God, firstly Vaikuntha, then Ayodhya, Dwaraka, Mathura, and finally above all Golak, transcending the vague areas of negative immortality that the impersonalists aspire for, the devotees, the Vaishnavas, dedicate themselves to the life of eternal devotional service to the Supreme Lord of the transcendental realm. Bhagavad Gita 18.54. Although the soul can maladapt himself to a fallen state of existence in the planes of exploitation and renunciation, he is inherently adaptable to the positive life in the kingdom of God and fully blossomed in he reaches in the realm of Golak, Sarupa Savara Haya, Goloketa Sthiti, Sri Sri Krishna Asostar Satanama. Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam. Amrita means undying or nectar, and Jivana means life. Positive immortality is possible only for the surrender, Prapanna. All others are necessarily mortal. Only those who have wholly given themselves to the center are living in eternality. Surrender is fully established in its excellence and its constant position. Yet there is a variegatedness within the constancy in the form of progressive movement or pastimes, vilasa, the Supreme Absolute Personality being infinitely superior to both the mutable mortals and the immutable immortal, negative Brahman, only the Sorupa Siddha souls, those who are perfectly established in their divine relationship with him, are eternally freed from the disease of mutation and mortality. Sorupena Vyavastita. Bhagavad Gita 2.10.6.
Okay, thank you. That
Thank you.
yes, that
Thank you.
that BHA stands for Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam. BG is the Bhagavad Gita, and BHA means the Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Purana. So, a very nice, how beautifully and clearly Srila Sridhara is explaining everything about the real understanding of spiritual life. Huh? It's not merely impersonal realization or something that is merely thought. There is an activity in the highest plane of spiritual life. There's activity going on all the time, and these are called pastimes or lila. And to come into contact with that plane, that will only be understood when we come there. It can't be understood by any philosophical or scholarly study, because that's all taking place on the mundane plane. That transcendental plane is there because we don't have experience of that. We have to have faith by the words of Shastra, Sadhu, Guru. These are the only way we can access that higher thing in our present state. Not that we can access it, but we can hear about it. And we have to have some faith that these things are real and genuine, and that by practicing the proper process of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, we can attain to that higher platform. But that's a proof. The proof of that is only by reaching there. Only when you reach to that platform can you understand the reality of that world. To some degree, philosophy is able to point these things out to us. Hegel philosophy, for instance, or Plato, or even Aristotle, to some degree, give us some hint of those things. But the actual experience of that is not to be found in this world until we get to that higher transcendental platform. And so we have to have our Shraddha, our faith, and Sharanagati, also surrender. Without those elements there, then it's not possible ever to reach that plane. And not like it is something within our grasp that we can hold. Infinite is not like that. that is not the infinite. And any attempt to do that, to grasp the infinite with our tiny hands, that is foolishness. It's like the child, he sees the moon and he puts his hand up to grasp it, but it won't come in his hand. So he thinks it's a balloon. Huh? He has no idea of the real nature of the moon. So he has a childish conception that anything he sees, he can grasp. But these things are not like that. Huh? They're not graspable in that sense. Those who are endowed with the good fortune, huh? With the sukriti, they call sukriti, who have that necessary qualification of the heart, not too proud and puffed up with their own abilities. They may have some humility and some appreciation for these higher, finer things by some grace. Then they accept these things very, very wholeheartedly, and they engage in their entire self in these pursuits. All right, next.
Can I ask something?
What's that? What is that?
See, I just have a curiosity to know that suppose somebody knows that she or he is not going to survive for a long time. Is it possible to overcome that state of suffering?
Someone knows they're not going to survive?
Or maybe tomorrow, or maybe for a long time. But as you know that people are attached to body and the mind. So
the thing is, everyone is going to die. We're all going to die. And that's this material world is called Mrityalok. Mritya means death. So that's what this book is about. It's how to reach the Amrit. The Amrit means without death, the immortal. This world is Mritya, death-filled. That higher world, the immortal plane, is Amrit. The meaning of Amrit is deathless. And that also means joyful. Nectar, bliss, Amrit, the nectar of the gods. So the task for every human being is how to pursue that path of immortality, of Amrit. And this book is about that. And it says that through Sharanagati, through surrender, we can reach that plane and get free from this plane of Mrit. Through surrender. There is another life for us. It doesn't involve our exploiting this world. And if we can move ourselves into that through our heart, through our consciousness, we can move ourselves into that plane. We will understand how there is eternal Amrit pastimes of the Lord going on all the time. And we won't be burdened by this death and all these other things. I would repair. Excuse me, my voice is not so good today.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Good. So I think we'll stop here now at 2:00. I hope this is very informative for you. Give you some good thoughts, some good understanding of what's going on, and that you can utilize it in your life for spiritual progress. So my humble dandavat pranams to all of you. Please be well, be happy, engage in service. And my love to you.
You be well as well, Maharaj. Please feel better.
Thank you. Dandavat.
Dandavat.
Dandavat pranam to everyone.